You pass a stranger on the street. You don't decide to judge them, you just do. Trustworthy, threatening, competent, weak. Your brain hands you a verdict before your foot finishes its next step. It takes about 1/10 of a second, faster than you can blink twice, faster than you can read this sentence out loud. And here's the strange part. You will defend that verdict for the rest of the encounter, even when the evidence says you're wrong. Why would your brain trust a snap judgment more than it trusts you? The answer isn't really about faces at all. It's about what faces used to mean back when a wrong guess could get you killed. You like to think your opinions come from evidence. You meet someone, you talk, you observe, and slowly a picture forms. That feels true, it isn't. Long before you've heard a single word from a stranger, a decision has already been made somewhere beneath your awareness. Psychologist Alexander Todorov, working at Princeton, found that people form judgments of trustworthiness and competence from a face in roughly 100 milliseconds. Give them more time to look, and their opinion barely changes. The first flash was already doing the deciding. That should unsettle you a little. It means the calm, reasonable person you think you are is often just narrating a verdict that a much older, much faster system already reached. So where did that system come from? Not from culture, not from Instagram or dating apps or job interviews. It came from a world where the person walking toward you might be family, might be a stranger from another group, and might be dangerous. In that world, hesitation was expensive. A slow read of a face wasn't cautious. It was a liability. Picture that world. Small bands moving across open land, maybe 20 or 30 people you knew by heart. Every face was familiar. Then, every so often, a face wasn't. That single, unfamiliar face carried enormous weight. It might mean a trading partner. It might mean a rival. It might mean violence. Your ancestors could not afford to wait and see. There was no time for a slow, careful character assessment while a stranger closed the distance across the grass. So the brain built a shortcut, fast, rough, and biased toward caution. Researcher Nalini Ambady spent years studying what she called thin slicing, the mind's habit of forming accurate feeling impressions from tiny slivers of behavior or appearance. Her work found that people could predict outcomes from teaching evaluations to negotiation results based on just a few seconds of observed behavior. Seconds, not conversations. The pattern shows up everywhere researchers look for it, because it isn't a modern habit. It's an old one, dressed in a new context. Underneath that shortcut sits a small almond-shaped structure deep in your brain called the amygdala. Amygdala just means the part of your brain that flags emotional and social threat before your conscious mind catches up. Neuroscientist Ralph Adolphs and his colleagues found that damage to the amygdala changes how people judge trustworthiness in faces, particularly making them slower to register a face as untrustworthy. Take away the alarm, and the snap judgment softens. That tells you something important. The verdict you feel when you look at a stranger isn't coming from your thoughtful, deliberate mind. It's coming from an alarm system, one built for a world without lawyers, backstories, or second chances. Think about what that alarm system actually had to work with. Not words, not history, just geometry, the width of a jaw, the height of an eyebrow, the curve near the corner of a mouth. Faces that happened to resemble an angry expression, even at rest, got read as more hostile. Faces with wider, rounder features got read as more trustworthy, the same soft signals your brain associates with youth and low threat. None of that geometry has anything to do with who a person actually is, but your ancestors weren't being asked to be fair. They were being asked to survive the next 60 seconds. A face that resembled danger got treated as danger, whether or not danger was actually present. The false alarms were annoying. The missed alarms were fatal. So the system tuned itself toward paranoia, because paranoia, on balance, kept people alive. That tuning didn't disappear when the world changed. It's still running, quietly, every time you meet someone new. Here's where it gets stranger. Once your brain reaches that fast verdict, it doesn't treat it as a rough guess. It treats it as evidence. This is called confirmation bias, and it means that once you decide someone seems cold, you start noticing every slightly flat tone in their voice and quietly ignoring the warm ones. Your mind isn't gathering new information anymore. It's hunting for support for a decision that was made in 1/10 of a second before the person even spoke. That's the twist your ancestors never had to worry about. In their world, the stranger walked past, and the encounter was over in minutes. There was no follow-up meeting. No months of working alongside someone your amygdala had already filed as a threat. The shortcut was built for a single fast judgment, not for the slow architecture of modern relationships, where you might spend years next to a person your brain quietly decided it didn't trust before you ever learned their name. And it gets more uncomfortable still. This same ancient shortcut is what makes unfamiliar faces read as less trustworthy across group lines, simply because unfamiliar shapes and features once meant unfamiliar risk. That isn't a character flaw unique to certain people. It's a leftover setting in a piece of very old hardware, running in brains that now live in cities built for strangers by the millions. Now think about your own week. The R.A. copyright, some A. copyright photo that made a hiring manager pause for a reason they couldn't name. The first date where something felt off before a word was spoken. The new coworker you decided you liked within seconds, for no clear reason at all. None of that was really about them. Most of it was your amygdala, doing the same job it did for 100,000 years, applied to a world it was never designed for. You live surrounded by strangers now, hundreds of them a day, on trains, in meetings, on video calls. Your ancient alarm system fires every single time, quietly, instantly, whether or not there's anything to fear. It's exhausting work for a brain built for a world of 30 familiar faces, not a world of 30,000 unfamiliar ones. The next time you catch that flash of a verdict, that instant read on someone you've never met, you don't have to obey it. You can notice it instead, name it for what it is, not truth, not insight, just an old survival reflex doing its best with a world it doesn't recognize anymore. You pass a stranger on the street, and somewhere underneath your calm, reasonable mind, 100,000 years of caution has already made up its mind about them.